So the only other thing that I wanted to focus on is this topic of just how we leverage our resources in life, right? And the show, we can use the show as an example because I'll let you do the rundown because you did it so beautifully in pre-production. But our message to everybody is like, never count yourself unable to do something, because there's actually a lot of ways, and this is like a networking thing, right? Half of the time it goes back to who you know and how good are your relationships. And this is why relationships are meant to be cultivated, because if you're actually good at cultivating relationships, you could call in favors pretty frequently, because every time you call somebody, it's not a favor. Sometimes you just call to say, hey man, I miss you. And you know, like the other day I saw somebody from afar and I wasn't able to like flag them down, and I just called him and I was like, hey, I saw you, like we were in the same place, but it's like it's COVID and it's weird, and so I didn't want to like run up on you and give you a hug. So I'm calling you to say like, hey, I
What
miss
up?
you. And
Right,
like, yeah,
exactly.
we chatted for 10 minutes or whatever. So let do your rundown of like what resources we're using and kind of how we're producing a show now on
Mhm.
multiple mediums for the most cost effective model, I
Right.
guess.
Okay, excellent. So one of the things that was brought to my attention in us doing this and us having our conversations was just how different things are now than they were even like 10 years ago, as
Mhm.
far as people's ability to, if you want to do a thing and it's technology based, kind of like what we're doing, uh, the opportunities are really out there for you.
The
And
barriers to entry can
are
be
so
relatively
low.
low. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was growing up, if you wanted to put on a show like this, you needed a production staff and a studio and cameras and lights and
Yeah.
a
That was the
producer
only way to do it.
that was and not just that, but then permission. There was a gatekeeper. Somebody
Yeah.
was at a TV station or a radio station, or somebody was going to say yay or nay, and it was 100% based on, can I make money off of this? Can I
Mhm.
monetize this in a way where it's worthwhile of
Super
having my family?
conventional. There was a clear blueprint. There was only
Right.
one way to do it, and that was
And
it.
that was it, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, every the technology starts taking off and all of these new mediums become available. And so now, so just a quick rundown of how we put together our show, right? We use a Zoom program that is free. So this program that we're currently utilizing, it's a free platform that anybody could sign up and utilize to do their meetings, to run your own classroom, for example. You can put on a
Right. So
webinar,
in the
or
Excel document, there's a
right.
zero in the first column, free,
Right,
zero
exactly.
expense.
So the Zoom is free, right? Then I'm utilizing a camera that's attached to a computer that I already owned as a result of my other business, right?
Same.
So I
Yep.
was able to leverage my other business and utilize the camera there. Again, free. Uh, we were able to communicate through a medium that is free, YouTube, in order for us to upload these videos, totally free, right? So
Matter
we
of
were
fact, if you get good at it, they'll actually pay
they'll
you
actually
to
pay you.
post your shit. Yeah. So it's
Exactly
actually
right.
the opposite of costing you
Yeah,
money.
exactly right. And YouTube isn't the only medium, right? You could have your own Instagram show. So at some point, hopefully, we can leverage that. You can go on Periscope and use Twitter. That's free as well. You
Mhm.
can, as far
I
as
haven't heard about
promotion,
Periscope in a while. Is that still a thing?
I believe it's still around. I think
Oh
it's
wow.
not utilized as much because Instagram and
I almost
some of these
forgot
other
about
platforms. Yeah.
Periscope.
So you have but as far as the execution, the mic had to pay for the mic, right? So the mic
Damn
was
it.
a
We
certain
actually had
cost,
to pay
right?
money for
We had to
something.
pay for the mic, and then the new website we're paying a domain, right? But
Yep.
you were the one that did the majority of the coding and did the majority of the production on that. So we were able to do that. So far we have like whatever the website costs.
Yep.
I don't know how much that is.
It's
And
like
then
$12 a year or
12 bucks,
something for
yeah.
the
And then
domain.
and then the mic was somewhere in the ballpark of like 60, $70 by the
Mhm.
time it got from Amazon to here.
Yep.
So you talk about, for under $100, we've been able to produce, put together, tape, and push out a production. We'll leave the quality and and sort of what we put together to be
Yeah.
criticized by others, but at the end of the day, it's a production show that we can utilize. Now we put it together using PowerPoint and some like Canva for our social media and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Again, Canva free. PowerPoint, I utilize it in my real estate business, so I was able
If
to
you're a student, it's free.
if you're a
So,
student, it's free.
through my
So
MBA program, I get that.
exactly right. So at the end of the day, as I'm going down each individual thing, the bigger macro point is this, guys. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, focus on what you do have available. And all of a sudden you start realizing there's a lot of things at your disposal that if you really want to let the creative juices flow and let the world know who you are and what you do, you can do it. You can
Mhm.
100% do it. It's totally accessible, totally viable. This thing right here gives you access to the whole world. I'm holding up a phone for the folks that are on the podcast. I'm holding up my smartphone.
Droid.
Yeah, my Droid, right? So this with this camera and the Wi-Fi, you have literal access to. You could broadcast to the world. You could put together something, shoot it out there. It could be seen by one person or it could be seen by tens of millions of people, right? So the idea is once you start thinking in that sort of wavelength, you begin to see that the sky really is the limit. Like we can, bringing it back to our podcast. I believe the app that we utilize to disseminate it into Spotify and Apple, I believe that's free as well, right?
Well, it's free for up to 5 gigs. So at
For up
some
to 5
point,
gigs.
we're gonna hit the threshold of we're gonna have to pay for that. But I
That's it.
think it's a pretty moderate cost. It's like
Exactly.
$12
So
a month or something.
exactly. So the idea being that if you really are eager to do something similar to what we're doing, and if you are following along on our journey, I would encourage you to explore all of these different avenues because there's so many different things that you can have literally at your disposal that cost you nothing. And to your point, some of these platforms, if you get really good at them, will actually pay you. YouTube,
Yeah.
for example, and whatnot. So the idea being, look at what you have around you and start trying to leverage it in your favor. And on top of that, your conversation on relationships, that's so true. You Once you start fostering relationships and start networking with people, you'll realize that other people can also help you achieve your goals as well. And
Mhm.
so once you have your champions, plug in the other podcast, once you have your champions, all of a sudden you have these folks that are willing to do things to help you achieve your goals that you may not have ever thought about, but that they'll kind of come out of the woodwork and say, hey man, I see that you're doing this thing. How can I help you grow it? How can I
Yeah.
help you make it better? How can I help you monetize it? How can I help? How can I help? How can I help? All of a
Well, I
sudden
told
you
you that
start.
about the MacBook. I mean, I have a
Yeah.
production partner, an event partner that he's got all these studio MacBooks for his gigs, and he's sitting on like 9 of them, and he's not using them. He's like,
There
dude,
you go.
do you need a more hot rodded out machine to do some of your editing and some of your processing? And I was like, I mean, it couldn't hurt. Like, there's a MacBook is literally designed for that. So
Yeah.
he's like, oh, why don't you just, I'll bring you one by next week
Yep.
and you can borrow it. Or the same guy that I was talking about, how I just called him and said, hey, I miss you. I saw you down the hall or whatever. He offered up his DSLR camera if we ever want to do like a studio version. So we
There you
have
go.
a full blown HD camera rig and tripod and all that. So
Yeah.
it's obviously people are often willing to do things if you ask them.
Mm-hmm.
But the bigger moral of the story is if you're just a decent person who waters the plants of cultivates the relationships in your life, the literal and figurative plants in your life, you'll be in a great position. I mean, we do this all the time. We did it for our wedding. I mean, you were at our wedding.
Mm-hmm.
It was like basically we paid a couple $100 for the church we got married in. We leveraged the reception venue for $0. Even the glassware and all that, like we bought it and sold it back to them. Like we did all these things. A friend was a DJ. We had food catered locally. Like, we produced our whole wedding, which was an awesome night. Like I don't think anyone could argue it wasn't a typical, if not better, wedding than
Right.
an average for very, very cheap. Like probably less than, I don't know, maybe $2,000, $2,500, something like that, which in the wedding budget world is
That's unheard of.
insane.
Yeah.
This was 12 years ago, but I mean, it just goes to show you, like, relationships matter and user resources. Like there's so many great ones out there, and you kind of have to know where they're at. Like that's part of relationship building is like, oh, I know this guy who's a great web developer. Okay, well, when you need a website built, then you know who to go to. But if you don't ask the question, hey, what do you do? Like, what's your passion? Then you might not know that person's a great website developer, and you could, tap them when you're ready for that project. So, yeah, man, I feel like time went by super fast, but I think show 4 is coming to a close.
No, I agree. I would leave folks with this. Always try to take stock of what you have available. And if you can think creatively, that's where the magic happens. Honestly, and especially because once you start doing it, all of a sudden you begin to see other things that are in and around you that could potentially help you with your execution and hopefully grow whatever it is that you're doing. So don't ever let your circumstances stop you from taking a stab at what it is that you want to do. You know, for us, it was kind of putting this little show together and seeing if we
Yeah.
can get it off the ground and seeing if we could actually do it. And so on. And kind of the challenge was what, at the beginning, like, can we actually do this? Let's try ahead and do it. So definitely focus on what you have available, nurture those relationships, and then that's where the real magic will happen.
Well, for this year, I mean, this is obviously there's a lot of terrible things that have happened this year, but for me, the gift that I'm going to walk away with in 2020 is like, I've been more creative in the last 4 or 5 months than I ever have in any juncture of my life in my
Yep.
career. I've learned new processes. I mean, I could have never built a website in February of this year. If you would have said, gun to my head, go build a website, I would have been like, I guess I'm going to get shot then because I don't know how to do that. But I've since built
Fire away.
two or three websites. Obviously, building the show up, building my business up, registering a business, getting all your finances and taxes and software and all that stuff lined up, learning new things in a way that I've never at a speed that I've never done before for a variety of reasons. I mean, that's the gift that I'm going to walk away with. I'm going to walk into 2020 with a heavy tool bag of things that I didn't have when I walked into, when I walk into 2021, I'll have a heavy tool bag of things I didn't have when I walked into 2020.
Yeah.
So, we'll leave you with that, man. Great show. And we'll be in the podcast world now. So check us out on all your podcast mediums. But I'll let you do the sign off.
Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to watch the show or listen to the show in whatever medium you decided to consume this. We do appreciate you right along on this journey with us. Don't forget, our new handles are at the Gas Up Podcast, right?
Yeah, at the Gas Up Podcast and
at the Gas Up Podcast,
the Gas Up Show.
The Gas Up Show. We'll make sure we include that in all of our, tags, monikers, all that stuff. But don't forget to leave a comment or a like if you guys do like the show. And with that, we'll see you on episode 5.
That's right. Take care, y'all.
Adios. Bye-bye.